Um, uh, Good afternoon, everybody. It's so great to see all of you here. It's going to be a great session. My name is Jack Duraki. I'm Dean of the Graduate School at Winthrop University, but it's also my pleasure to serve as president of CSGS this year. I just want to make a couple announcements before we turn it over to our facilitators. Obviously, as a reminder, you're muted, so we do want you talking. So raising your hand via Zoom or with this number, we might even be able to see you, but then please engage, unmute, and join the conversation. And the facilitators will have more information about that as we go forward. We already have the next two fora identified. There will be one on October 6th, and that is going to be facilitated by Jamila McDonald and Sharon McGee. And I think Sharon's here. Hi, Sharon. Sharon's shaking her head. It may not be Sharon, but it's already been.
But I don't know it.
Well, that's okay. It's all right. That's going to be really focused on recruitment because, as we know, COVID has presented a lot of different challenges for recruitment for our graduate programs. So that'll be a great. That'll be a great conversation. And then Peter Harries and Ruth Barr are going to head up a research-driven fora in November. The date for that is November 4th. Again, these are always at 1 o'clock Eastern. So if you want to mark those dates, that'll be great. More information will be provided on the CSGS website and also through the listserv as we go forward. In addition, we will be looking to schedule a forum on hosting a virtual 3MT. A lot of our universities are planning to roll these out this fall, and we'll try to get one of those scheduled. We do have some folks that have done that with some different levels of success, so we will try to present that separately, and we'll send that out through the listserv and put it on the web page as well. What we've discovered by these monthly fora is a great vehicle to serve our members, so let us know how to serve our members. The 3MT, the recruitment, and research are clearly three very important topics to all of us, so those are important conversations that we can have going forward. So please, if you have some ideas for panels you'd like to see in these monthly calls, you can email me directly at durakij@winthrop.edu, or you can email CSGS at csgsconference@gmail.com. I do want to say, a lot of folks have been asking questions. We are planning a virtual conference in February. There is a conference committee that has begun working on that. Karen Coates, our president-elect, I gesture to the right side of my screen because clearly everybody knows that's where Karen is on my screen. Hi, Karen. And Karen is president-elect of CSGS, and she's heading up a group that will be planning what that virtual program might look like. So we're very excited about that, and it will include a virtual 3MT. So more details on that will follow soon. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to our three facilitators. It's my pleasure to introduce Lori McMahon from UAB. She serves as Dean of the Graduate School at UAB. John Hakala is Associate Dean ad infinitum at College of Charleston. That's a new title that's been added. And Julie Goodlife, who is at UNC Charlotte, serving as Director of Fundraising within the Graduate School. And so Julie, I'm going to turn it over to the three of you. So thank you so much for facilitating this important conversation.
Thanks, Jack. We thought we'd have this forum about it's September, right? September 9th. School's been open for a little while. We just wanted to find out first, how did your reopening plans go? And so basically we'd like to talk and maybe have a therapy session about what was the plan and how did it turn out, and maybe what you would have done differently if you could have, or if any thoughts about it. And this includes everything. So, asynchronous online, synchronous online, in-person, mixtures, who's teaching face-to-face? Are the undergrads on campus? Do the undergrads get sent home? What are your cases like? All those things. Any of the above So please share. Karen, you look like you unmuted yourself, so I'm going to call on you.
Oh, okay. Let me put my video back on. So we, back before we even were close to starting school, we had made plans about what would be face-to-face, and that was going to only be things that absolutely had to be face-to-face. Everything else went online. A few things were hybrid. And so we started our fourth week yesterday. And we, up until yesterday, everything, even the face-to-face things what was planned to be face-to-face was online. But we went face-to-face yesterday with some of those, courses. And so students are back on campus. So far, so good from all I've heard. But we haven't had anybody on campus up until yesterday, really, other than staff.
Okay, so the undergrads moved in and everybody's back as of yesterday.
Yeah, I mean, we're not at full capacity by any stretch in the dorms, but they are occupied.
How's your enrollment? Was your enrollment similar?
Our enrollments are good. We were concerned about losing hundreds of students, and we're actually overall up just a hair. And at the graduate level, we're up 25%.
Wow.
Wow, that's fantastic.
Yeah, it's a pretty incredible. We're excited about that.
So 25% overall, 25% more students than last fall?
We're up approximately 650 students.
Wow.
That's great. We are up at UAB in the graduate school a little over 8%. And overall, undergrad and grad were up about 1.5%. So we also thought we were predicting a 7 to 9% decrease in enrollment back in June. So we're really happy that didn't happen.
Yeah.
Yeah, we had an increase also, and that came along with a decrease in international enrollment, which makes sense. So my group, we don't raise money, we spend the money actually, and we spent it, and then we had to go to figure out which countries we could send any money to if a student started online at home. So we were dealing with export controls, sanctions, and now taxes. So countries started levying taxes on tuition money paid overseas, and so that was a big mess, and most of those students didn't make it. But we've increased a lot in domestic enrollment, and we're up. The campus is up to 30,000 for the first time ever, which is crazy.
So did anyone require COVID testing to enter campus for students having to provide evidence of a negative COVID test?
Yeah, here at the University of Alabama, Tuscaloosa, we did require students to.
Yeah, I guess, yeah, those of us in Alabama, we all had that, right? Auburn, Tuscaloosa, UAB. I think overall there are probably, I don't know the exact number, maybe 17 or 18 institutions in our state, including community colleges, had an opportunity to require, it was an opt-in to require COVID testing to enter campus. And that was funded by our governor's office, a $30 million award using CARES funds. And it was managed by UAB in partnership with a couple of companies. So we were fortunate to be able to have that.
How often do you test everybody?
So this was just to enter campus. So students that were starting in the fall semester, returning students and new students. Some of the students, the clinical programs who started back in the middle of the summer, like the medical school, they start back in the summer. They were not required, but those who started back for us at UAB after August 1st, everybody had to be tested. And now we have ongoing sentinel testing for students, faculty, and staff. So 2.5 to 3% of our students, faculty, and staff participate in voluntary sentinel testing every week.
Sentinel testing, that's cool. So do you keep testing the same people to see?
No, it's random.
Okay. I guess they wouldn't sign up for that probably, right?
Winthrop is obviously smaller than many of these other universities. And I'm also wondering if there's a little bit of resource gap that's driving some of that testing. We could not provide the testing, and we did not, you know, if the undergraduates were required to offer proof, you know, I'm not sure. I mean, they tried to screen them on the way in, but you know, we have no scaled testing plan for what's ongoing. So it's a, you know, it's a little perilous, right? I mean, you know, we do not have the quarantine dorms. We may be sending students home if they are tested for a little bit. Like, we have some quarantine, but not much, you know, and then everybody else would be sent home. So.
Yeah, I think you're right, Jack. I mean, you know, there's pretty big variability across all of our institutions, depending on the students that we serve, and
right.
just, yeah. And for those of us who have a medical campus, we, you know, have an advantage that we have that. And I think that's what's helped in our state.
Absolutely.
Despite the high numbers at some of our institutions in our state, as we were talking about at the beginning. Yeah.
Right, which is Georgia's fault, really, on all campuses. I think.
Right. So what have been the biggest challenges for all of you on your campus? Or if you could, you know, share what you think your single biggest challenge has been.
Well, I think for us at ETSU, it's been the same thing that it has been since March, which is making sure the clinical placement sites are available for those in our who need field placement or clinical placements. Obviously our student teachers and those in education programs are having trouble getting, you know, public schools are just now starting to go to a hybrid face-to-face model. So that's been a real challenge. We've had to delay like our white coat ceremonies for our doctorate of physical therapy students because they didn't have enough clinical hours in and things like that.
Yeah, you know, that's been a challenge at UAB as well, making sure that those clinical students are going to be able to graduate on time.
You know, I wanted to raise something here. I'm curious to see how many of you are dealing with this, and this might be some of the long-term issues that we're going to have to deal with, and you know, that's morale. John, I'm looking at you at College of Charleston. We are now furloughed 20 days, so a month. So folks at Winthrop, faculty and staff, are losing a month's salary, and I think everyone kind of knew that was coming, but it was announced literally a few days before the undergraduates were returning on September 8th, which no one has faith is being handled appropriately, right? And we're already seeing resignations. We're already seeing folks leave to go to other universities. You know, they might enjoy the office. I've lost a staff member that just started, but they can't take the financial hit, you know? So we're going to have furloughs. We're in a hiring freeze. And now people are resigning as well, given enough concern to the health of their faculty and staff. Because, you know, of course, students want to be in campus, and of course we need the revenue, but at what cost? So I think there's going to be some long-term consequences there that we're already seeing, not solving, but seeing. Anyway, I just wanted to add that.
So it's interesting, yeah, kind of following up on that, Jack. You know, after hearing that there are some institutions that are doing well with student numbers, there are a lot of institutions, and a lot of them are smaller institutions, that are not doing so well. And so, you know, I don't know if this is going to drive a, you know, financial bifurcation here at different types of institutions. But in addition to Winthrop, I mean, I know in South Carolina that Clemson's got some furloughs, and what is it? Coastal Carolina has furloughs for all faculty and staff who make over, what is it, 35,000 or something. And the College of Charleston, we have no furloughs yet, but our Board of Trustees decided to instead of putting together a budget for the year, they gave us a 3-month budget. So that's going to expire soon, and then we'll find out where we really stand, because we don't know yet either. So yeah, there may be others of you that are having issues like this too. I assume that, you know, it's not limited to South Carolina, but maybe, I don't know.
We did have furloughs at UAB too. That ended at the end of July. So they really synchronized it with the extra unemployment monies from the federal government to help offset financial challenges for people just getting unemployment. And that was kind of variable across the board. And then our leadership, all of the deans took a 7% pay cut. All of the department chairs in the School of Medicine took a 10% pay cut. Our president, provost, all the vice presidents took a 10% pay cut. So that's how we've dealt with it.
That's interesting. I think that seems like a way of dealing with it that is a little more sensitive to morale. I would think, kind of like the way UNC Chapel Hill did theirs, which is all within athletics. So cutting the salaries at certain percent above $1 million and above 100,000, and nothing, no cuts below 100,000, and that's just within athletics, and the whole athletics budget cut 10%. So I mean, it seems like as university people, it makes sense to think about the mission, right, and do cuts a little more strategically than like what you got, Jack, which is sounds like a totally across the board. Every person, whether they're crucial to the mission or whether the mission could go away, or whether that thing could go away and the university would still carry on just the same.
Well, we had an athletic cut as well. The tennis teams were cut. But yeah, to your point, but it has to do with the budget. Winthrop's budget's a lot tighter than a larger university that had been managed perhaps better. I have no doubt that these considerations were given, but
so that's another thing that happened here was that they decided to cut the adjunct budget, and because they were anticipating that students wouldn't show up. So I haven't heard the latest numbers, but I don't think we lost as many students as we thought we were going to lose. And that means that all the students that showed up are crammed into the other courses, which are now mainly online, right? And so the faculty members that were already struggling to figure out how to handle a class online are now trying to figure out how to do it for a larger class online. And so go back to your point, Jack, that hurts morale. I mean, people feel like, everything's come crashing down. They've had to learn how to teach online during the summer, so they've lost their summer months doing this. Now they have increased numbers, plus they're looking at the potential of pay cuts. So
that's right.
So I think this is Robin from University of Memphis. I think it's interesting because University of Memphis, we actually came into this whole thing really strong financially. Now we're not so strong financially, but the reality is we're up in enrollments, not nearly as great as 25%. That's outstanding. We're up 8% in our graduate enrollments, and then overall about 1.5%. So the reality is, I feel like, okay, we were doing well financially. We must have this money coming in. But the reality is when you look at the dorms and you look at everything we're doing, we're socially distancing. So we only have one person in a dorm room that may hold 2 or 4, right? And so we've actually lost a lot of revenue in our ancillary areas. And of course the state budget cuts don't help, right? So now we're looking at, here we've worked really hard and we've brought in all these students, and yes, like y'all, our faculty are doubling their class sizes, and especially online, and we're all sacrificing. Granted, we're not sacrificing with any pay cuts yet. Athletics did, but the rest of us have not. And yet there is, to your point, there is this huge morale issue. We've been able to protect salaries so far. We still see a decline in income, although quite frankly, we've worked our behinds off to ensure strong enrollment. And so there's this huge tug of, but I've worked so hard and I'm doing so much, but I'm not getting rewarded and my institution doesn't care. The reality is the institution cares so much, we've been able to keep things afloat. And I don't know how do you message that? How do you say, just by keeping your job and not taking, a pay cut that, actually that's a huge benefit right now, because this is a really horrible time. I mean, if you look at other industries, y'all are reading the same things I am. The travel industry is down 90% in many corporate revenues streams. So they're laying people off right and left. And so, it's a messaging, and yet it's also COVID, I call it COVID craziness. Everyone's just on the edge right now, mentally, I think. We're all dealing with our own version of COVID hell. And it's really, you're right, morale is I think a huge, huge issue, regardless of what you're trying to do to protect people.
I'm glad you shared that perspective. I think you're right about messaging, because, I think most of us, even if we've had to take a pay cut, at least at UAB, that our pay is going to be reinstated. But the travel industry, as you mentioned, those people have permanently lost their jobs. And so I think messaging to put a positive kind of silver lining, to find those silver linings everywhere we can, because there have been some, and to have that communication and say thank you. I mean, I think that's something that needs to be said often, is thank you for your extra efforts, so that people feel appreciated.
Well, that brings back the other point, which is communication is one of the areas where we're suffering the most on campus right now. Is that all of the things that you used to be able to do by walking over to the room next door, or down the hall or something, and talk to somebody where you could get a message out personally. Now you have to wait until either somebody schedules a meeting, in which case you're just a face on the meeting, and maybe in the list, the Brady Bunch list of people on the screen, or maybe you actually add a little comment in. The comment may or may not get lost. And the only other option you've got is to send out an email to try to hit the public. And it's hard to get that messaging out. And I think that the people who are feeling left behind are feeling maybe more left behind now, because we can't figure out how to message them. So that's a good point, Lori.
Adam, you had your hand up.
Thanks. I'm Adam Sept from the Office of Graduate and Professional Studies at Texas A&M. I would just add to the conversation about morale, graduate students.
Yes.
I mean, we are certainly dealing with here, the graduate students the corporate student body has made a series of statements where they have asked for, among other things, extensions on funding and additional protection and consideration for in-person teaching. And at the university level, at the department levels, these are difficult to manage, and it's not probably not unexpected if some of the relations between graduate students and their departments and institutions get strained in all of this.
Okay, point.
Well, and I would say let's also add the additional surprises. I mean, we've got continued here in Lafayette, Louisiana. I'm at the University of Louisiana Lafayette. We've had a great deal of unrest connected to race, and then throw a hurricane on top. It's been a rough go. And in fact, most of our really rough moments so far this fall have been more connected to concerns about Black Lives Matter and unrest.
If I can jump in, I agree with all of those comments, and I think one of the greatest challenges we've had is we're offering a lot of courses in either a hybrid format or what is de facto hybrid, that's called face-to-face, but students can attend virtually if they're in isolation, or if they don't feel good, or if they just don't feel like coming that day. And class attendance is really low, virtual attendance is high. And what that puts on our TAs and faculty is the need to teach simultaneously to people in front of them and people online. That's incredibly complicated. We had administrative meeting where one of our VPs said, wow, this is hard talking to some of you in the room and others online. We're like, welcome to the faculty world. It's almost impossible to do it well. But on the other side of this, I think the climate of social justice has helped morale on our campus in the sense that there's a unanimous feeling of protecting the most vulnerable. And the most vulnerable aren't seen as our graduate students or our GTAs, even though they might be living on the thinnest edge, but it's our staff who are low paid and really dependent, their families are dependent on this income. So I feel like we're coming together to avoid the furloughs. That's the specter that a lot of schools are experiencing, and it's causing our faculty to not push as hard on the, who's watching out for us, because they understand the need to keep the whole ship afloat for the most vulnerable members of the staff. And even our graduate students have expressed solidarity with that sentiment. So that's a positive, I think.
Ron, you had your
Ron?
hand up. Go ahead, Ron.
Yeah, Ron had his hand up. Yep, go ahead, Ron.
Thank you so much. I'm Ron Walcott. I'm at the University of Georgia, serving as an interim dean of the graduate school through all this turbulence. So
Awesome.
It's been fun. It's about a year I've been doing this now. And I echo everything you've said, but sort of layered into that is the tension that our graduate students have with our USG Board of Regents. There's a lot of social media, a lot of communication about because we don't determine whether or not our courses go online. There's a process by which that's approved, and we have to have, if the course is not approved to be fully online, it has to have some aspect of a face-to-face component, which is being met in large part by using TAs, which creates that additional tension. And so the TAs are using the graduate students are using social media to advocate for social justice for those marginalized in our community as well as on our campus. But they're putting a lot of pressure on the USG, our Board of Regents, which is also feeding back to our administration. So there's a lot of complications and making it very difficult to have a unified sense of we're all trying to stay safe. And as a result, there's a certain degree of lack of trust that's pervasive and problematic. And I think, Jack, you said it earlier, recovering from this sort of cynicism and entrenchment around keeping the campus safe versus keeping the campus fiscally viable. There are things that will have intentionality in terms of building back from where we are right now.
Yeah.
And we can even see that from, sort of distrust in the CDC itself, and can we believe these dashboards? Who's building our COVID-19 dashboard? And are they really? What are those numbers really? Are we testing as many we claim we are? Are we? I think it's actually certainly higher education is seeing it from, the governance that comes from the state over the state schools. That it seems like the revenues are more important than other things. There's no leadership at any level. The Department of Education has been invisible. Hey, if somebody had said, hey, here's a couple $1 trillion to make sure that education can be safe, back in March, we'd have a different situation today. Sharon.
Yeah, hi. I just kind of want to pivot a little bit on this discussion of morale, because I think another issue that we're starting to see, and probably you are as well, and that I think we need to be advocates for as we can, are issues of promotion and tenure, because we have a lot of faculty tenure track faculty in particular, whose research agendas have been waylaid. Whether that be they cannot get into an archive because they're a historian, or because their labs were closed, or because of field sites being closed, etc. So I know that we're starting to have that conversation beyond stopping the tenure clock, which is to me a Band-Aid solution, right? But ultimately it affects people's ability to get promotion and therefore raise. And so it has a long-term financial consequence for people if we stop their tenure clocks. And I know, I will give a shout out to our president, who did say in a town hall, he said, we know that this has been a problem for all parents, but particularly for single parents and women who have, borne a brunt of having additional responsibilities put on them. And we need, on the home front, and we need to think, he said it much more eloquently than that, but we need to, think about what we're going to do in terms of promotion and tenure. And so I don't know if your institutions are having those discussions about what's going to happen for folks on the tenure clock, but it's a real concern that I have.
That was literally a major agenda item with the provost this week, is that very thing. And we're trying to look around and seeing what a lot of schools are doing, whether they're stopping the clock, whether they're leaving it optional, depending upon whether it's probationary faculty, whether it's tenure track, or whether they're already tenured but going to full, that kind of thing. It's definitely a major subject for us right now. And we've not determined what the final solution for us is yet.
Yeah, we haven't either. We're starting those conversations though.
Because so much of the focus of this current context is the instruction. Right? It's not focused on the research and the scholarship. It's focused on how are we going to teach, right? But we are tenured based on, right? What's the research? What's the service too to the university? All that.
Well, I think there's plenty of service in teaching right now. I mean, I think where people are probably, and I know, from some of our grad coordinators, who are concerned about the junior faculty, who are really just not able to do what they're, and then there's this whole attitude that we hear from some of our colleagues, which is, well, you didn't have to come into work all, for 6 months. You should have gotten a lot done. I mean, it's just a ridiculous patriarchal argument that pisses me off. But anyway.
Well, and yeah, and to your point, Sharon, so many faculty have small children who were out of school and home, and they're trying to homeschool, and just that added stress challenges productivity when you do have time to work on your research or prepare your lecture or change the format. So it's really, just the mental health aspects for our faculty and our students. So that's something that we've spent a lot of time talking about on our campus, and I'm sure all of you have too on your campuses. So what are the things that you as in your role have put into place, or your institution, that you think will stay, that are positive changes, that you think maybe you had intended to do and didn't get around to, that you were kind of had to do given COVID, that you think are good practices that will stay on your campus?
So Lori, George raised his hand. Do you want to?
Yeah, I was just going to say that, one of the things that we had fits in perfectly with what Lori was mentioning was over the years, we've had several suggestions from our online students that they needed to be more involved with the university community. They wanted to be part of university organizations and be a part of our on-campus events, which most of them were in person. And so it was always kind of difficult. So when we transitioned to all of our meetings being on Zoom, then suddenly it became very natural for our students that were online. They were all involved. And so that is in place now. We've got the resources, we've got the experience in doing that. So really bringing that community together, integrating our, our online or on-campus activity, providing an experience that is more inclusive for all of us, for students that are in whatever format has been a very a good thing, and it's something we will certainly keep.
I think advising, remote advising, virtual advising, I think that's probably going to stay. Students seem to like that. The advisors seem to be able to engage students more readily without having them wait for an advising appointment. And so I think that's gone really smoothly.
This is Jalil from North Carolina Central University. And I've been wanting to put our orientation online for the 5 years I've been here. And every year there were so many things happening during the summer that I never got to do that. But we did that this summer, and I'm so proud of that. It turned out really good. We had more than 98% of the students attending, which is a record-breaking attendance because it's not mandatory for our orientation. But they all attended almost, and it was fantastic. So that is really going to stay. We're going to continue that.
Paul Gemperline at East Carolina University.
Sorry.
Hey, how's everybody? My spam filter's been sending all of the CSGS emails to junk.
Yeah, sure.
Uh-huh. It's true.
Mine too.
It's
And
a
mine
problem.
too.
It's a problem. Yeah. Anyway, so we, with all the stuff going on this summer, I recruited some graduate student leaders and encouraged them to try and create a multidisciplinary seminar series given by graduate students to try and flip the classroom in a really big way so we can learn from them what they know about racial injustice and privilege. And we have such a huge array of classes. So we've got 26 graduate students on that steering committee. I'm paying 3 co-leaders a little bit of money. They've got, I think, 11 seminars scheduled so far. We had our first one last night. It was on racial disparities in maternal and natal care and morbidity. And there's been, they want to make really strong statements. They want to see really strong statements coming from me and the university about some of the things they're seeing in the news, and especially recently with anti-diversity training statements from the White House. And so they've been at times tension in those conversations, but it's been an amazing and rewarding experience. And for them, a big hook is to try and form a more cohesive community within the graduate student body, because we're bringing students together from across all kinds of disciplines where they tend to be really siloed and tend to be more of a silent student body. So it's giving them a voice, giving them power, and helping us learn from this rising generation of leaders. It's a remarkable experience.
What a great idea.
Sharon, you have your hand up in the oh, or is that clapping? Is that clapping?
Yes, I was clapping for Paul. I thought that was great. But I'll just add that one thing I started doing last March is I did a weekly video, just a short video for our grad students, because we just kind of suddenly told them, go home, go away, And so I would give them a quick update of any news, and then I would I read a poem of hope or joy. And I got so many comments from students that they really appreciated just a short video. So I'm not going to do it every week, but I think I'm going to try to do it a little more regularly. So
did you do that did you record that and put it on your webpage? What did you do?
I just recorded it on Zoom, and we put it on YouTube and sent out a link to the grad students every week. So, so if we had updates about labs, or if we had updates about, this, that, or the other, I would give that, and then I would read poem.
Would you send a link in the chat to
Sure.
the? I'd like to see that. Yeah.
That's an awesome idea too.
Yeah, I like it.
Great. And I think, you know, back to our conversation about morale, I think one thing that we can do is to remind everyone about the great things that we have put in place to help remind everybody, because it's so easy to get in the doom and gloom and everything's bad. But in our leadership roles, we can try to remind everyone, but look at these great things that we've put in place and look at how we have been serving our students. And so just hearing these couple of stories just now is pretty exciting. So it's those kinds of things that we can lean on and try to inspire our colleagues to think more positively.
Well, Lori, and adding to that, you know, just everyone is dealing with the same, on a campus, everyone is dealing with the same frustrations. Students have bumps, faculty have bumps, and just reminding us that, you know, the enterprise is still there. Let's be patient, recognize what's happening. And there are opportunities that we have as leaders that we can help set that tone. So I really appreciate some of these comments and sharing. That just seems like such a great idea. You know, your question about one of the things, I hesitate to about the positives that came out of this. So our faculty governance meetings have been on Zoom. Oh my gosh, they are much more, so quick. It's fabulous because everybody uses the chat rooms. So then the facilitator just picks 2 comments as opposed to 427 faculty members getting up to speak for 3 minutes each. Oh, it's fabulous. It's so great. Anyway, I'm hopeful that that will continue after COVID.
Lori, I think one thing that we might keep is, so my group handles all the money that goes to grad students, from assistantships to tuition support, scholarships and things. And the provost, the chancellor, every level has said no one should lose money or lose their job. No students should, because of COVID-19. And so, you know, my group is, you know, my people are the ones that disapprove this firing and disapprove this demotion and disapprove this, you know, reduction in pay, reduction in hours, and we're disapproving. And so the administrators that have been getting all of those emails that say this is disapproved, this is disapproved, they realize now that somebody's actually paying attention to what they do to the students. And that's a good thing. And we're going to keep going with that, even if we ever get out of this pandemic. There has to be a really good justification for you know, demoting a student and canceling this and canceling that has huge repercussions for their tuition support and their health insurance and their entire lives. So I think people have become a little bit more aware of the treatment of students, and I think that overall can carry on, hopefully be a good thing that stays.
I'll share something a project that we're working on, putting final touches on a public service course that faculty experts are contributing to. So we have 6 modules that are being led by several microbiologists. I did one on vaccines. We had you know, one on the virus. We had one on what's a pandemic. We had one on economic impact, one on health and wellness, one on testing and treatment, that sort of thing. We have a microbiologist, a faculty member who has been doing testing for months. He's been really involved in testing. But anyway, we all did these 30-minute videos that we're putting together in one major public service course. The president did a little introductory video to accompany that. We're in the midst of finalizing what the syllabus looks like. We have little, you know, easy 5-question quizzes that follow each module, but it's all done in Canvas. And so we will be releasing it to students very soon, and we'll put it out to the general public kind of when we figure out how to do that best. But that's coming, and I'm excited about it. And I really think that that's the kind of project that we will continue to do as other things emerge. I mean, we may do something, we're on the coast, we may do something on hurricanes as they come along, or, you know, various topics. There's a lot of different things that faculty experts could contribute to. But I think it's a way of informing students and the general public, but also kind of showcasing the expertise on campus and getting our name out there. So I'm excited about the project. I think it's gonna be neat when it's done.
Related to what George Flowers was saying about the online students not being able to participate on campus, we also have moved some of our activities online that used to be in person. And some of you probably have heard me talk about our Discoveries in the Making series, where we have our students go out to a local science-inspired pub in the evenings and talk to a non-expert audience about their research. And so we've now moved that online, and one of our speakers in August drew an audience from Antarctica and Scotland and let's see where else. Can't remember. There was another country across the globe, and then from people across the U.S. So, you know, in the past it was just local people, and so now that activity has much broader reach. So we're going to continue trying to broadcast that series online as well.
Yeah, involving folks from in our programs that we've offered really across the country now has been a big boost. One of the things that we borrowed several years ago, one of the programs we borrowed several years ago from Virginia Tech is their Dean's Cafe, which was an event where we would invite students to come by once a month, and we would provide them with snacks, and they would talk to grad school staff, and we would all interact for typically a couple of hours. And we moved that online. That's continued to be very popular. And my admission director came up with the idea, well, we can't provide food anymore directly. So what we've done is those that attend, she sends out goodie bags to, little snacks and different from the graduate school. So, and it's been literally from students all over the country. So that is one aspect of our communications that's actually got substantially better in this time.
I'm wondering if any of you have started thinking about spring semester yet. And how are you going to operate for spring?
We just agreed in our Dean's Council the other day to recommend to the president that we continue with a 20% face-to-face, 80% online for spring. And, you know, if spring break proves, you know, if things start changing in March, we could pivot more toward on ground if folks want to, but probably, you know, we'll stay 20/80, which is where we are now.
I don't think we know yet how courses are going to be delivered. At least I haven't been privy to those conversations at this point, but we are adjusting the calendar. So we're already talking about there won't be a spring break, and, you know, our semester is going to end a couple of weeks earlier than it normally would have. So that's definitely going to happen.
At UA, we're talking about whether to start as early in January as we have in the past, whether to wait till after New Year's, a little further, but also talking about how to increase the face-to-face engagement for students.
So who's doing in-person graduation in December? Anyone?
We haven't had an official announcement yet, but it's not going to happen.
Yeah.
We haven't had our graduation for spring semester yet. We're going to do that in October. So I don't think we're really thinking about what we're going to do in the winter quite yet.
So it looks like Mary and Susan raised your hands. You're going to have in-person graduation?
We actually had in-person graduation in August. It was not particularly well attended, and it was hot on the football field. But as of right now, yeah, we are intending to have graduation in person. We did go ahead and allow the doctoral students to be hooded. And there were all kinds of protocols in place to make that happen.
Did everyone wear a mask?
Everyone wore a mask. The hooding had, we finally got everybody else out of being part of the hooding, which was a great thing because it was like 5 people surrounding. Everybody wants to be part of the hooding instead of just the chair and the student. So that was one nice benefit of it. But I mean, we were really damned if we did and damned if we didn't do it. Nobody was particularly happy with how it was handled. But yes, our university right now is planning to do it in person on a Tuesday.
UA did in-person graduation in August, and we had distance ceremonies, so we had 9 of them. And so they were short, but there were a lot of them. And we had the doctoral students walk in with their hoods already on, so we didn't do any hooding, partly to keep the ceremony as short as possible. And actually, we didn't have any faculty there. We asked faculty not to come. So it was students and their parents, and a really slimmed down platform party. That's it. I think we're doing the same thing in December. That's the plan.
And do you have any idea about the need for contact tracing and COVID positives after that event?
We didn't have testing before it because it was in the single-digit days of August. We weren't back in session, and the arrival testing wasn't up and running. So we neither tested beforehand nor heard of any issues afterwards. Of course, people scatter. So it's not the same as if you have a dorm full of people attending an event and then they're all at your student health center.
Right.
This is mostly undergraduates who had already graduated, most of them in May. So they traveled here for the ceremony and then they went home.
Yeah.
I didn't have adverse publicity. You know, I keep wondering, even now, as we've had 2,000 cases, and some of those students, if they aren't feeling good, they are going home. And, are we really going to know if they're seriously ill, if they're hospitalized? But the truth is, I just feel like the press would find out. Someone will email a newspaper. We're in the newspaper all the time for that high number of cases. And, locally, we're at no hospitalizations. With 2,000 cases, no hospitalizations, and most of them asymptomatic. So, we're more worried about the faculty right now than we are.
Disclose that on the Friday of graduation, to which I was supposed to be the, mistress of ceremonies, that was in the evening. At 11 o'clock, I received a call letting me know that I tested positive. I had no symptoms. So I had to call my provost and let him know that we had to find somebody else to step in at the very last minute. And I will say that was 3 weeks that I don't want to ever have to experience again.
Well, we are rapidly approaching the end of our hour together, folks. I want to thank everybody for making time today. This was wonderful. It was a great conversation. There were some really nice ideas, emphases on communication and morale, and thinking about next steps to support students and our faculty. There's some really nice hearing what everybody's been dealing with. Thank you for joining the conversation, not just joining the forum, but joining the conversation. It really has been wonderful to hear all the great work that's going on. In closing, I'll just remind you again, we've got 2 more scheduled, one in October, one in November, and we will also be working to schedule a third to help schools prepare for virtual 3MT sessions. So more on that via email and on the webpage going forward. Just want to thank Julie, John, and Lori. Thank you so much for getting together to facilitate this great conversation. I know the membership really appreciates that. So if you're like me, you're late for your 2 o'clock or your 1 o'clock, depending upon your time zone. So thank you so much for your time. Everybody have a great week, month, and fall semester, and everybody just stay healthy. Wishing you all the best.